Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Med School Minutes podcast, where we discuss what it takes to attend and successfully complete a medical program. This show is brought to you by St. James School of Medicine. Here is your host, Kaushik Gua.
Welcome and thank you for joining us for another episode of Med School Minutes, where we talk about everything MD related with a focus on international students, specifically Caribbean students. Today we have a very special guest. His name is Dr. Sanket Chaudhari. He's an alumni from St. James School of Medicine, and he is waiting for the match results coming up this year. He just graduated, and he's actually helping us or working at St. James as a student counselor. We're going to talk to him about his experiences, his background, and what the student counselor position actually entails. So without further ado, let's welcome Dr. Sanket Chaudhari. Thank you for joining us, Sanket.
Thank you for having me.
And I know we're going to talk about you a little bit. What we really want to focus on is kind of your journey. So why don't you just walk us through your background and why you chose St. James, and let's go from there.
Okay. I'm from Canada.
Mm-hmm.
Well, born in India.
Okay.
And we moved to UK when I was in like grade 4.
Okay.
So in London, UK. And did some schooling there for 3 or 4 years. And then we moved to Toronto.
Okay.
And I was there until grade 9.
Okay.
And then we moved to Alberta, where I did from grade 10 to grade 12. And did my university, so University of Alberta, which is in Edmonton.
Okay.
Just in sciences.
Okay.
After that, I just ended up working.
Okay.
For a few years. I did some courses here and there, but I was working as a salesman.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
And any other jobs, or was it just?
No, it was. I also worked at my parents' restaurant.
Okay.
As a
chef,
manager, everything.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And as far as being a chef, I can relate to that a lot. I think everybody can.
Well, I call myself chef, but
I mean, but you were prepping meals. And,
I was, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
How's your plating skills?
I mean, better than my dad's.
But what kind of restaurant was it?
It was a Asian like a wok, like it was called Wok Box.
Okay.
There's a lot of Asian food from like Thailand, China, India too.
Okay. What do you think you made the best?
I think
from the menu.
I was pretty good with Pad Thai.
Pad Thai?
Yeah.
All right. And but for me, Pad Thai is like you add the sauce and then you toss it around, and then I feel like almost everything else goes on top of the noodles as opposed to
the peanuts.
Is that
pretty much?
Okay.
Yeah. And our sauces were, since it's a franchise.
Okay.
So we didn't make.
I gotcha.
Our homemade sauce. It was through, we got them.
Okay.
But yeah.
Okay. And is there any dish that you're absolutely sick of?
Sick of? No, I wouldn't say I missed all of them.
Oh, really? That's awesome. We need to definitely try. So next time you guys are in Toronto, definitely make a stop at, what is it?
Wok Box. But it's not, it was in Alberta.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, in Calgary.
Oh, sorry. In Calgary. If you guys are ever in Calgary, stop at Wok Box.
Yeah.
And whoever the new chef is, just tell them that Sanket did it better.
Yeah, we sold the restaurant, by the way.
Well, in that case, you should say that, Sanket did it better. And then tell me a little bit more about your sales experience.
So it was a furniture store.
Okay.
So I was a sales manager. So I initially started off being a salesman and then became a sales manager within like a year.
Okay.
It was good. I actually liked it, but my dad said I was not using my full potential. I should be doing something better. That's why I started looking into medicine.
So correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
You've done really well as a sales manager, and you won a couple of awards.
Yeah, we won. It was a national so we had every year we have competition.
Right.
So our competition was who sells the most warranties.
Right.
So my store came the highest.
Right.
when it comes to warranty percentage.
Right.
Because like it was a store in Airdrie,
Right.
which is a small town north of Calgary.
Okay.
So obviously we cannot do volumes like some Toronto stores can,
Right.
but it's about the percentage,
Right.
like the warranty. That's the competition that we used
Right.
to have. So yeah, we were the highest. So I won an award. I was number 1 in the country.
Okay. So tell me this: how do you reconcile that with medicine? Because the way I look at it, doctors typically are very collegial. They're very empathetic. They're very good team players. Whereas when you think about sales, you typically think about cutthroat, lone wolf, dog eat dog. How do you reconcile that? How did that work out for you? Like, or were you really cutthroat, dog eat dog, and you didn't care about anybody else until you hit your numbers? Or what's the story behind that?
So I think like in Canada, like everyone, all the people that I worked with were extremely nice.
Okay.
But also there were some people that were cutthroat. They would always like skip a line.
Were you one of those people?
No.
Okay.
I think the reason I did good was because I would listen to the customer.
Okay.
Right. And I think that relates with the patient too. If you listen to the patient, like half of their things are solved.
Okay.
With customer, you listen to what they're actually looking for.
Okay.
You empathize and sympathize with the customer,
Right.
and they'll tell you exactly what they want.
Okay.
And then you could like try to help them out. Like let's say if they're here for a sofa, you tell them like, okay, maybe what kind of coffee table were you looking at? Why don't we get a whole deal together?
Right.
Amongst that line, but that kind of translates to medicine
Okay.
because you're listening,
Right.
right? Instead of like just ignoring what they're here for,
Okay.
ignoring what they want,
Okay.
and then putting your own agenda onto them.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. So essentially, like you're a good listener, and so because of that, it almost sounds like it was second nature to win win the sales competition, because you literally gave customers what they were wanting, like in the sense that, oh, if I get this furniture, you guys are there for me throughout. I mean, that's a really interesting way of looking at it. And then while you were a sales manager, did you decide that, I've had enough of this, I'm out, I'm gonna...
No, I think it was my dad and my uncle.
Okay.
Because I did pretty well in like high school and whatnot. So they're like, I feel like you're wasting your potential.
Okay.
Oh, you know how brown parents are, and they either want you to be an engineer or a doctor. So initially, then I started looking into engineering, but like my dad's like, really wanted me to do medicine.
Okay.
So I was preparing for MCAT.
Okay.
And believe it or not, it was my dad that ended up applying to St. John's.
Oh, okay.
Because it's one of the schools that didn't require MCAT.
Right.
He's like, why are you wasting time like writing MCAT?
Right.
That was his reasoning, obviously, right? And you could start this right away.
Okay.
So that's why.
Well, if you did write the MCAT, you do know that you would have gotten a lot of scholarships.
Yeah.
And your tuition would have dropped dramatically.
Well, my
Good thing you're done.
Yeah, I'm done now.
So,
but that was his reasoning, because my plan was like applying like a year after.
Right.
I have my MCAT done and applying to like Canadian schools first, and then that was the initial plan.
Okay. So if I were to, and then you got into St. James, and then what happened?
You know what? Like I really initially I was like a little hesitant because I come from like the mathematic type background, like not really into biological science and physiology. So I was a little afraid. Okay. But I really liked it. Okay. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed medicine, anatomy. Like the first anatomy class I took, like, it was amazing. I mean, also like the cadaver was crazy. Like at the time there was Dr. Huck.
Right. Okay.
So he made it really fun. I really enjoyed it.
Okay.
And coming to St. Vincent, it almost felt like the village that we're from, like in India.
Okay.
Yeah. So everyone's extremely kind. Okay. They'll treat you like family. So like the place I lived in St. Vincent, I think it's called the Burrows. Okay. And then they will invite us every Saturday and Sunday, like for a meal upstairs.
Oh, wow.
So they were so kind.
Who, as in your landlord, was it?
Yeah, landlord.
Oh, okay.
They treated us like family. So I didn't miss home much.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And when you went to St. Vincent, was there, like, were you shocked? Were you pleasantly surprised? Were you like, oh my God, where the hell did I end up? Was it beautiful? What were your emotions when you first set foot in St. Vincent?
I'll tell you. So when I landed, it was nighttime. All right. So I was a little scared because, like, I don't know where we're going because, like, it was so dark and I couldn't see. You know how, like, in St. Vincent, like, all the lights are
turned
off
it's
at night.
It's a mountain community.
Exactly. And so at night, you don't see, it's dark.
Right.
So I'm like, hopefully I'm not, where am I? Where is the taxi driver taking me?
Right.
But then it was pretty easy. Like, it was not all the, the anxiety was gone the next day because I met my classmates.
Okay.
And whatnot. And we hung out, went to downtown, went to the beach. It was nice. Yeah.
And so I don't know if you know this, but we are merging our campuses from Anguilla to St. Vincent. And there's a lot of apprehension about moving from Anguilla to St. Vincent.
Yeah.
What would your advice to these students be?
St. Vincent. Oh, it's better island, I think. It's one of the better.
Why did you say that?
A lot more people. You don't feel like you're there by yourself. Okay. I think good food as well.
Okay.
Well, I haven't been to Anguilla, so but from what I think, it's pretty good. If you're not vegetarian.
Okay.
If you're vegetarian, then
okay. And what about cost? St. Vincent?
St. Vincent, some of the stuff is expensive, I would say.
Okay.
For example, like instant coffee, it's almost the same price as, or even a little bit more expensive even.
Right. Well, that's because it's coming from
exactly.
Yeah, right.
But the local food is pretty cheap because like you get a whole meal for like 10 EC.
Right.
Which is what, 5?
So I've noticed that too, because in St. Vincent, if you're getting Oscar Mayer, that's expensive. Like you're paying like $10, $11 for like a pack of hot dogs. However, if you're getting the Trinidadian brand or the Barbadian brand, that's a lot cheaper than anything in the United States. And I'm going to be honest, the taste is really not that different. I mean, I'd actually say that I'd go out on a limb and say that the local brands over there are tastier.
They're pretty good. Yes.
So and have you ever had a situation that you really wanted something and you just couldn't get it in St. Vincent?
Yeah, I mean, I was really looking for a whiteboard.
Okay.
And I couldn't. It was a very hard thing to find in St. Vincent.
Really?
So we went to like 10 different stores.
Right.
And luckily we ran across this lady in downtown. It was like, there's this one store that sells it.
Okay.
And it was the last one.
Okay.
There. So we were able to find it.
So it seems like it is available. It's just knowing where to look.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah. You don't know where to look.
Right. And the stores in St. Vincent are essentially like the multi-purpose stores, right? Like one store does everything from medicine to whiteboards.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Just like in India is the same.
Exactly.
I think most developing countries are like that. And which year did you leave St. Vincent?
During pandemic. So 2020 April.
Okay. So this was right during the pandemic. So you've been out of St. Vincent for 4 years.
That's right.
But what about transportation on the island? Is that?
I think. So we ended up renting.
Okay.
And renting is, I would say it's on like expensive side. It's
renting what, a car?
Renting a car.
Okay.
It's like on average it's like 500 to 600.
Okay, that's interesting because most of our students actually just don't rent. They just walk or use
or Yellow.
Local transportation.
Yellow is the bus driver name.
Okay.
Yeah. So most students end up using him because he drops us off, picks us up.
Okay.
He has like a 3-time shuttling service at night.
Okay.
So we usually left at 10. If you want to take him, we'll leave at 10 and he'll drop us off.
Oh, wow. So this is not a brand, but this is the name of the bus driver.
Yeah.
Okay. That's pretty cool.
I mean, everyone calls him, I don't know his real name.
Okay.
But everyone calls him Yellow. I think his name is different.
Okay, because you were saying, I was like, it must be something like yellow cabs in New York.
It's a yellow bus. So.
Oh, okay. So he just goes by Yellow. That's interesting.
Yeah.
And what about safety? Did you ever feel that St. Vincent was unsafe?
Never.
Okay.
Never. Obviously, there are certain areas that you got to avoid, right? those areas are the ones that, they offer like very cheap housing. So that's how like students you get attracted to that area.
Right.
But those I would avoid. I remember one of my friends got robbed 3 times.
Right.
And he still lived in the same area.
Right. Well, I mean, just like any big city, St. Vincent has what, 100,000 population?
Yeah, something like that.
That's the size of a second-tier city in the United States. And in those kinds of, I would say maybe, every city has its issues.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you, even in Chicago, like, with the elections, people make it sound like this is, there's Afghanistan and Iraq, and then there's Chicago.
Yeah.
And I've been here for 20 years and I've not much as heard a gunshot.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if you go to the areas that are particularly affected, for example, rent is very, very cheap in the south side of Chicago. And that's the reason it's cheap, is because they don't really get a whole lot of people. But the good news is that St. James has its own dorms now.
Yeah.
So security, I mean, I don't think St. Vincent ever, I've been there obviously several times, and I've never thought that security was an issue. I've walked out late. I've walked in the streets. Obviously, there are cultural differences, though. I mean, what would you say the cultural differences are from people in Canada who are supposedly really nice?
Yeah.
Versus USA versus St. Vincent?
Okay, so I should say St. Vincent, by far, I felt much safer in St. Vincent than Chicago.
Okay, really? Where do you live in Chicago?
Oak Park.
Oak Park's a really nice neighborhood.
It is, but I live like on Austin, so like border of Oak Park.
Okay, but that's still.
Yeah, I mean, it's not bad.
Okay.
Right, but at night, if I want to walk, right, I wouldn't feel as safe.
I hear you. I think that generally that's maybe not a good idea in a city as big as Chicago to walk late at night.
Yeah.
Unless you're with a couple of other friends.
Yeah, a couple other friends, exactly. Whereas in St. Vincent, like there's farmers there, right? So they carry machete. Does not mean that they're gonna come after you, right? Like, that's not. So don't be scared by that. Like they're usually one of the nicest people. Just because they're carrying machete means nothing.
Right.
But you could walk at night. I used to. I mean, I didn't go often, but sometime in the morning I'll go to the gym like 4 a.m.
Okay.
There's only one gym on the island. I don't know if they built more.
They've been quite a few right now.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah. So the fitness lab is where I used to go. It was a walking distance. Like when I say walking distance, probably like 10-minute walk.
Okay.
But I used to see people like the farmers carrying like machete or whatnot going to work. It's completely safe. They're very normal people.
Right.
Yeah.
And would you say people are friendlier in St. Vincent versus USA and Canada? Or how would you rank these three countries?
In Canada, you probably won't see anyone at nighttime. You're more likely to see a moose.
Okay. What about in the US? What about people in general? Like, I
mean, I think they're very welcoming. They're extremely welcoming, St. Vincent. And a lot of people will notice that.
Okay.
Also, there's bad crowd everywhere.
Right.
A majority of them are extremely kind.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And when you finished St. Vincent, you came to the United States. Where did you do all your rotations?
So West Suburban.
Okay.
And then I did have 1 or 2 at Community First.
So all in Chicago?
All in Chicago.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
All in Chicago.
And did you have any readjustment issues when you came from St. Vincent to, say, Chicago?
Yeah, I didn't like it much.
Really?
Initially, I didn't like it much because, obviously, I was by myself at that.
Right.
Yeah. So it was a little bit getting used to.
Okay.
There's no cleaning ladies like that was on the island. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. That isn't everything in the US. You have to do it yourself.
Yeah. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what about from a food standpoint? Did you have any adjustment issues in Chicago?
Chicago, like U.S. in general, your food is very salty.
Really?
And sugary compared to Canadian.
Yeah. Okay.
Or compared to like, I don't know, even maybe St. Vincent.
Okay.
Like it feels, I mean, I don't notice it anymore.
Right.
I love it now.
Right.
But when I initially I'm like, wow, this is a very salty.
Okay.
Why does the fry have sugar?
Okay. I see.
Right?
That's very
You don't notice these things, bro.
Right.
When you
Okay.
That's the first thing I noticed about food.
Interesting. And well, I mean, I want to take a step back again to St. Vincent and just talk about what your initial reaction was, like from the topography. Like when you first came out on the next day, you started meeting friends and stuff, but or classmates. When it comes to the topography of the island and the general beauty of the island, you said you went to beaches. Can you elaborate that a little bit more?
Yeah. So, you know how you mentioned like there's like a mountainous kind of region, right?
Yeah.
So I was not like ready for like how steep the climb was, right? Or so, you know, because like with even the cars sometimes have like hard time going up, and it's crazy steep. So there's no problem going down.
Yeah.
But when you're coming back, I wanted to walk back up to my apartment was very hard. And the beaches are a little bit different. They're, I think they call it black sand
beaches, yeah.
Right? Because of the active volcano.
Yeah.
Which did explode, I think, in 2020?
Yeah.
Or 2021?
Erupt. Just
it was very live. It was very scary. I was not, okay.
But you weren't there.
I'm kidding.
No, I mean, you know, what really struck me about the volcanic eruption was that when the volcano erupted, people were out on the street dancing. Some people collected ash and selling it on eBay as fertilizer. Yeah. And to me, that is just so admirable. Yeah. Because people over there are like they take life head on. Like literally, they take life by the horns. Yeah. And no matter what the situation. And I think that that's something that not just USA, but Canada, USA, and a lot of the Western world has a lot to learn from. Instead of having anxiety and, stressing out about a difficult situation, they're making the most of it. Also, of course, the volcano happened in the far north region of the...
I think only in certain areas of downtown was affected.
Well, they had ash flow, not flow, but ash coming on the cars. And
it's
stuff.
Like snow.
Exactly. And that's what people were like, Christmas came early, and they were making all these jokes and memes. And, you know, whereas us over here in Chicago, we were really concerned and worried. And whereas folks on the island and our staff, they're like, yeah, it's not a big deal. You know, we get through it. When the volcano erupted, there were videos. And honestly, I'm not going to lie, it's one of the most beautiful things that I saw. Yeah. And not just that, when a volcano erupts, this is something I didn't know, because of the electrical charges in the ash that hovers around the summit. Yeah. It triggers lightning, and essentially like a lightning show, if you will. Wow. And I remember watching this live from our faculty and staff on the island. And they were just like, it was a show for them. And I was like, you know what? And that's a big lesson that I took away for myself, was when the volcano erupted, something that potentially, and if something like that happened in, say, USA, I have a feeling the reaction would have been very, very different.
Panic, anxiety, yes.
Whereas there, people took it in their stride. They made the most out of a situation that could have been very unfortunate. But it didn't turn out to be like that. Yeah. Everybody enjoyed it. And then because of the volcanic ash, I think typically, again, I heard that this is very typical of most volcanic eruptions, is that when the eruption subsides, there's usually very torrential rainfall afterwards, because it induces the electric charge and whatnot, induces a lot of storm clouds and things like that. So we had torrential rainfall, and so the whole thing lasted, I would say, about 3 to 4 days. And then with the torrential rains, all the ash was washed away. Wow. And it was like a brand new beginning. And not just that, like, because of all the ash fall, which is incredibly high in various chemicals that are conducive for growing, or fertilizers, the island is even greener now.
Really?
Yes, it is. I mean, it already was incredibly green. Yeah. And then it's already green now. So I know you mentioned that instant coffee and stuff like that was very expensive back then, but I know the government has made an active effort to develop its agrarian industries, including coffee and cocoa. Wow. So, and mind you, these things actually grow wild there.
Yeah.
So now they're focusing with a little more technology and having their own development. And one interesting thing, I don't know if you know this, is that St. Vincent, I think, if I'm not mistaken, is the first Caribbean island to legalize marijuana.
Yeah, there was, yeah.
I don't know if it's a big part of their culture.
Yeah.
And from my understanding is that they've legalized it, and I don't know is it readily available on the island?
I mean, I was offered once.
Oh, okay. Well, it's because you're a nice guy.
Yeah. So,
but I don't. From my experience, they're only just like in the United States. There are set dispensaries. I think on the whole island, there are just 2 places that actually sell marijuana, but it's regulated, and I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And again, it's a part of the culture, so it's not necessarily abused. Like I would go out on a limb and say that there is a lot of abuse of marijuana that happens in the United States.
Yeah.
Even as it being legalized, it's, but there it's a part of the culture. It's very ritualistic. I mean, think the Rastafari and their culture. It's a part of their region. But did you hike to the volcano ever?
No, that's something I did not do.
Okay. Why not?
See, I'm not a big hiker. It was like a 6-hour, 7-hour hike.
Yeah.
I mean, I should have. Not looking back, I should have done it.
Okay.
But I thought it was going to take like a whole day going up there.
It does take a whole day. But nowadays, our students actually organize hiking groups, and they go up together and they come down together. And it is a national reserve, if I'm not mistaken, the hiking trail.
It's beautiful. I've been told it's like amazing.
Okay.
But Dr. Santosh at the time was teaching us like, all these mosquitoes that you get bitten by.
Oh. Well, I mean, it is a tropical country, and those are risks. There's no question about it. But I also think that there are ways to mitigate those risks.
Yeah, of course.
And what about any of the other? You mentioned you spent time on the beaches. What beaches did you spend time on?
So I lived in Villa Lodge.
Okay.
So it's near the stadium. Like
Okay.
A little bit.
I see.
Yeah, that's where towards Fitness Lab side. So in the back there's like a private type, not private, but there's a beach right there.
Okay.
When I say I spent time, I was only initially when I started medical school. Like right, it was like first week.
Right.
After that, I probably went like 3 or 4 times.
Okay.
I guess I never got into it.
Okay.
But I know a lot of students who spent all day on the weekends. Sometimes they'll rent out a boat.
Okay.
Yeah, and go. So.
And St. Vincent is an archipelago, right?
What is that? What does that word mean?
Archipelago is a group of islands.
Okay.
It's not just one island. Like, for example, Anguilla. Anguilla is one island.
I see.
And St. Vincent is an archipelago, which is like the Philippines or Indonesia.
I see. Okay.
A group of islands.
Yeah.
Have you visited any of the other islands?
No, I'm in Barbados, obviously, because
within St. Vincent.
No, the small islands like nearby.
Yeah.
No,
you didn't.
I wish I did.
Okay.
All these things I wish I did now.
Okay.
But
well, the good thing is that means you were studying hard, and obviously the
yeah.
fruits of your labor have obviously paid off.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you never really had a chance to explore the other islands, which is a good thing because I keep saying medical students should not have free time enough to go visit the other islands. But the other islands are white sand beaches.
Yeah.
And Bequia is the closest to the mainland.
Mm-hmm.
And then you also have Canouan and Union Island, which are resort islands.
Yeah.
In fact, in Canouan, you have the Mandarin Oriental there.
Really?
Yes. And I think it's the first Mandarin Oriental in the Caribbean.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're building some more, which is obviously a big deal. And then you also have these, and they're all white sand beaches.
Mm-hmm.
So just the mainland has black sand beaches. Have you ever ventured to the Atlantic side of the island?
Nope.
So
not much.
Which is great.
Yeah.
You're giving all the right answers. You studied hard.
Yeah, I did. And then my days off, like I just felt like watching TV, for example. Right. When you finish your exam or just chilling.
Right. Yeah. So what did a day of chilling in St. Vincent, other than watching TV?
Okay, so chilling also includes like $3 high rooms that you get.
Okay.
3 EC high rooms.
3 EC. So that's what, $1?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think at one point it was like cheaper than water.
Oh.
And then you get like 3 for 9 EC.
Right.
So
why would you buy water in St. Vincent? Because if I'm not mistaken, St. Vincent has the best water quality of all the CARICOM Islands.
Yeah.
And in fact, you can drink straight out of the tap. I know the government is very proud of that achievement, which I would dare say even America cannot boast of that fact.
No, we never bought water.
Okay.
I'm just comparing it.
Oh, bottled water.
Bottled water was more expensive. But yeah, no, I never had to buy any water from anywhere.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And did you visit any of, I'm guessing you didn't have time, but like St. Vincent also has a lot of historical landmarks where they have a fort. Mm-hmm. Did you visit the fort?
No, I didn't.
Okay. The fort's beautiful.
I visited the jail.
Did the police catch you for something?
No.
Okay.
No, because we were there in downtown, and I think we're trying to get license, right, for a car license, like temporary license. So, and then we saw the jail. So I said, "Wow, this is pretty cool." Like he's like, "Oh, do you want to see it?" Like the police. I'm like, "Yeah, that'll be pretty nice." And he actually showed us. They're extremely nice to because they know we're students.
Right.
Very kind to us. Also, don't take advantage of that, right? Like do something illegal, but they told us, "Hey, you guys want to come see?" I'll show you.
Wow,
that was pretty cool.
That was awesome.
Yeah,
that's an interesting story. No, I mean, even my experience in St. Vincent has been great. People they welcome foreigners. What I really like about St. Vincent, it is not commercialized yet. It'll get there, I'm sure, but as of now, it is not. Oh, great. You forgot to hit record?
No, I was checking that though. That's what I was checking. Okay, you said as of now something.
Commercial.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, it is getting there. I do think this is a very exciting time for Vincentians and St. Vincent in general. Lots of construction happening. I know the Sandal Resort just opened up. Connectivity of the island has skyrocketed.
Yeah.
The number of connections from mainland USA. I remember when we started, there was just one flight from Miami to St. Vincent 1 day a week. I think that's changed. You can fly out practically any day of the week. You have flights from New York. You have flights from Miami. You have flights from Toronto now.
Toronto, yeah, that's every week, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Twice a week, I think. I forget.
Well, during busy season, it goes up to 4 times a week.
Wow.
And then during slow season, which is the hurricane season now. Right? And I think the coolest thing about St. Vincent, it is not in the traditional path of the hurricane. It's not in the hurricane belt.
Yeah.
So, which a lot of other islands are. Yeah. But again, I mean, as I said, the folks in the Caribbean are just so incredibly resilient.
Yeah.
So anyway, I mean, after St. Vincent, you obviously came to Chicago and you finished everything up in Chicago. But now I want to ask you, you're very unique in the sense that you've lived in four different countries if you consider India, UK, Canada, USA, and St. Vincent.
Yeah, it's 5.
It's 5.
Yeah.
What's your learning from this? Like, what's your takeaway from living in? Because I can tell you, there aren't that many people who've had the privilege of living in all these different countries. So, what's your takeaway from this?
I think like every country has its own charm, like the culture and everything, right? But one thing I should mention is that from kindergarten to grade 12, I switched more than like 12 schools.
Okay.
Because my dad was an engineer. He's like wherever he got a job, like he always to move. So all that, like I feel like it kind of like helps me in communicating, and getting to know other people. Like I mingle with people a lot more easier.
Right.
But in terms of people, everyone's. I haven't had any bad experiences in any of the countries.
So, do you think it's living in all these places? Did you ever have any personal issues? Like, I can't make friends, or, I don't like this place that much.
Honestly, I have never had that kind of issue.
Okay.
The only time I felt like that was when I was starting my rotation in Chicago. So I was by myself. I had to do everything by myself.
I see.
That was only for like a month.
Okay. What about college? Were you living at home when you did undergrad?
So we were in Edmonton.
Right.
That's where my University of Alberta is located. And when I got to university, my parents decided to move to Calgary.
Okay.
So I lived in dorms.
Okay.
It's called Lister, Lister dorms. So like,
Okay.
we have different towers. We're actually very famous when it comes to dodgeball. We broke a record in dodgeball participants.
I'm sure that's very relevant for all our listeners.
Yeah, and I was there during that record breaking.
Did you play?
Yeah. So search us up on Lister Dodgeball League. I'll be there.
Okay,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah.
So is there like, I watched the movie Dodgeball.
Yeah.
Is it anything like the movie? Like,
No, it's more competitive.
Really?
It is crazy.
Really?
People bleed
With dodgeball?
with dodgeball.
Well, I can see that.
That's how hard they get hit in the face.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
And is there like a varsity kind of scenario with dodgeball? Do they play are there international competitions at all? Or?
No. So we had like 4 towers, right?
Right.
Our 4 towers, we had like 15 to 20 floors on each tower.
Okay.
So it was your floor.
Oh, okay.
Those were the teams.
Right.
And then your tower too. So we have
Okay.
All-Star, which is the towers only.
Okay.
But it's like, I was in 7 Schaefer, like 7 Schaefer versus like 3 Mackenzie, for example.
Okay,
Like that was
okay.
a tower name.
Oh, okay. And you guys won?
Yeah, we were the best team. Of course.
I see.
Look us up.
That's funny. And so now that you're done, you're obviously looking for residency. You just graduated and you're finishing up residency or applying for residency.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts about residency? I know you mentioned are you a Canadian national now?
I've always been Canadian national.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you think it's easier? Do you think it's harder? Did you take any special steps while applying for residency?
I only think, no, not something that other than what USIMGs or non-US IMGs would have to do, right? ECFMG certification,
Okay.
which requires OET, and step 1, step 2, which is same for everyone.
Okay. I see.
But if I want to go back to Canada,
Yeah.
that's a different story. Then I got to write Canadian exams.
Well, I mean, so, we've had a podcast with another gentleman called Dr. Escudero who finished with us and then got residency in the United States. Post-residency, I think he worked a couple of years in the United States and moved back to Canada to start his own practice. And he said that once you finish everything in the United States, you don't have to do, other than like standard paperwork.
Exactly.
You don't have to do anything. So apparently Canada has a very big reciprocity with the United States. So anybody licensed in the United States can go back.
Yeah. So that's actually, like a good thing you mentioned it because the borders are opening up.
Okay.
So after residency, also depending on what type of residency you did, if it's family medicine or internal medicine is a little bit more open.
Okay.
Right. I mean, I don't know much about like any like higher specialties that are going back.
Right.
But Alberta is open now.
Right.
Nova Scotia is open.
Right.
Ontario is open.
Oh, okay.
So after either some, like you said, some paperwork and.
So are you interested in going back to Canada?
I mean, potentially.
Okay.
After residency,
Okay,
we'll think about it. Like it's because like everyone's back home, right?
Okay. Right.
So,
but Canadian physicians just don't make that much.
No,
money.
they don't make. Anywhere near.
Yeah. So and which is so surprising to me is because Canada's a big country with 30 million odd.
Yeah, probably closer to 40 million people now. Yeah.
Look at that. So 40 million, but that's still like
10% of what US has.
Yes, that's about 10% of US's size, and they're obviously sprawled over a landmass that's actually bigger than the United States.
Yeah.
So considering all of that, I'm just really shocked that Canada does not really have more residency slots. And and so if I'm not mistaken, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, there seems to be an absolute dire need for physicians in Canada.
Yeah, in Canada there's a huge need for physicians.
Okay.
Not just that.
More so than the United States even.
Yeah, because physicians that are in Canada are moving out. Are they coming to the US?
Because is it just because of the pay or
paycheck is a big thing, right? 'Cause like and for residency spots, I feel like I don't know. The last one I saw, I think this was 2 years ago when I was looking at the spots remaining. There were some spots that were left open. They were never filled.
Oh.
Yeah.
But how come, but why do people say that it's so competitive in Canada then?
It is competitive for non-Canadians. I mean, if you get your exams done, right? If you get your exams done and everything, and you're Canadian, I think you have a fairly good shot at getting residency in Canada.
But then you're probably not going to Canada or Toronto, Vancouver, or any of these big cities.
I think we have some few people from our school that match in Toronto.
Well, yeah, every year we do get
Quebec,
a couple of students who match into. But I'm just saying, generally speaking, if they wanted to go back, do you think it's, I would think, like in the United States, big cities don't have a dearth of physicians.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody wants to be in Chicago, LA, New York, Boston, all these big cities. But when you go to the rural areas, even USA has a dearth of physicians. Is it something similar like that in Canada as well? Or is it just like dearth of physicians across the board?
I mean, they're more, like focused in like, or clustered in areas such as Toronto,
Right.
like, Calgary.
Right,
even.
right.
But it's hard to find. If you go to rural areas, it's probably 1 or 2 doctors max.
All right. So considering all this, I know you said that you'll see, but what factors would influence you to probably go back to Canada? Would it just be family?
Yeah. Family is one. And then I feel like safety too.
Okay.
All right. If I end up having a family, right?
Right.
Obviously, if I'm doing well financially, then
You will.
yeah.
It's not well if I'm doing like you
But
will.
I'm saying like up to a point that I want.
Yeah.
I might, because it would be a good option. I feel like it's safe in terms of
Okay.
just safety in overall, like general.
Have you thought about the potential tax implications? Canada is, I would say
Yeah, we get taxed a lot.
easily. Well, I mean, that's debatable, but easily for a straight salary, you're probably paying 5 to 10% more than what you would pay, which is a lot. Even in the US, we pay a lot. But considering all of that, would you still want to make, because I've actually never seen Canadian students from our roster at least move back to Canada because they're like, I'm doing great. I'm okay here. I don't want to go back. I know it's very premature, but maybe a couple of years down the road, other than the safety factor, do you see yourself actually going back and practicing in Canada?
Probably not. There's a high chance I'll end up staying in US.
Okay.
A very high chance.
Okay.
Right?
For the match, are you actually applying for the Canadian match?
No, I'm not applying to.
Okay. All right. And for the United States, any tips and tricks for any of our viewers who are Canadian during the match season? Because obviously you've navigated this pretty successfully. You've got quite a few interviews already, and I think everything started last week.
Yeah.
So I have no doubt in my mind that this is going to be a slam dunk for you this year.
Thank you.
But for any of our Canadian students who apply, is there any advice that you might have for them?
There's a few advice. Like, when you're applying, make sure you have your application in before they open.
Okay.
Right? So let's say this year they open on 25th. You have your application completely done before 24th.
Okay.
Incomplete applications, from what I've been told, they just get pushed to the side.
Right.
Secondly, from what I've heard, obviously, like these are all, from he or he said or she said, right? That they go through USMD students first.
Okay.
In their first batch, usually USMD and USIMGs.
Okay.
Because they're American, they will not visa required. So Canadians usually end up getting interviews on the second half of October.
Okay.
From what I've heard.
Right. So I would say that, and that might be true for programs that are relatively new, and that are, that probably have a certain number of visa or visa limits that they have.
Yeah.
However, for programs that typically take foreigners, and the program director knows that.
Yeah.
And I've seen this happen. Like, I've been in several rooms when they're deciding who they're going to hire for residency. When they see that, what they typically do is they don't really look at where you're from. They're like, is this a good candidate that might be a potential fit?
Yeah.
So I do think that you're right, especially for smaller programs that have limits on the number. But if you're going to a large program, typically university programs, and like, for example, UNC and stuff. I've actually seen it the other way around also, where they've selected a candidate, they found out that person was Canadian, and this particular institution has never done visas. And we've talked through the university how to do these visas and stuff like that. And they did it because they liked the candidate that much.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, I would go out on a limb and say that maybe there really isn't, if you do your research properly. Now, if a program clearly says that we're not going to do a visa,
of course.
It's harder to change their mind.
Yeah, of course.
But if you know that the program takes IMGs, and there's several resources out there.
Yeah.
In fact, we have a Chat GPT, custom GPT that does that. If you go to Chat GPT and search up saying SJSM, you'll see it, and that actually tells you for all the presidency programs listed, even what percentage of students or their last class was Canadian or IMGs.
IMGs, yeah.
So, I mean, now that you're in that process, do you think the fact that you were Canadian, do you think you had a chip on your shoulder when you were doing the applications?
No, I think because, Canada and US is like so similar, right? Like, and so communication, I feel like a lot of programs actually look at us very similarly. Also, if it wasn't a visa issue, right? So I don't think they look at us that differently. I don't think I'm at like a disadvantage, or I might be at an advantage, right? Compared to, like, let's say like a student that's from India, that's gone through our school.
Of course, yeah.
Right?
Oh, 100%. I definitely think that that's the case.
Yeah.
But it's not like you wrote your personal statement in a different way because you were Canadian.
Exactly.
Did you?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, they recommend it. If a personal statement, try to be, because the last podcast that we did with Dr. Kruger and Dr. Pines, like, they're like, be personal. Like, it's a personal statement. It's a name for a reason.
Right.
They want to know about you, not about like your scores and whatnot, right? That you already say that in your MSPE and your resume.
Right.
So I think that it's a little bit easier for Canadian students to write, compared to, like, let's say an Indian IMG, or it's from a different country that doesn't speak English.
Right.
So I think in that sense it's a little bit of an advantage, but.
And as far as generally your overall experience, would you, for medicine in particular, would you do it all over again, or are you like, one's enough? I'll probably explore the engineering route next time.
No, I would do it again and again and again.
Really?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And if I got younger and younger.
That's also true. I do want to talk about this because this has been a hot button issue with step 1 and step 2.
Yeah.
You've obviously done really well. You've cleared it in your first attempt. Do you think that there is any changes from when you took the NBME to when you took step 1 to then you took the NBME for step 2 and then step 2? Do you think the stylistically or from the examination pattern, anything changed for you?
Not drastically, because when I was about to write step, they did change it in terms of like the content.
Okay.
I think they were removing like the pharmacological question to something a little bit different.
Okay.
Right. They were adding more communication skill type questions on there. That was in October 2021.
Okay.
And then they switched to pass or fail. So I wrote it right before it switched to pass or fail, like 2 days before.
Okay.
But there wasn't that big of a change where you would notice from your MBMEs.
Okay.
The concepts that are being tested are still the same.
Okay.
They don't change. But
okay.
But the way they ask is a little bit different.
I see. Well, I mean, define a little bit. What do you mean by it?
So I would say it's if step 1 or step 2 are more similar to what they USMLE on USMLE website. They provide free 120, so free 120 questions.
Okay.
It's from their website, and your step looks very similar to that format.
Okay.
And the length and difficulty of those questions are very similar.
Okay.
Sometimes on MBME you get some questions that are like way off.
Okay.
Right? Like, I mean, not that commonly, but the concept that is being tested, it goes across the whole board.
Okay. But do you think, based off of that, now that you know so much about the exams, would you have prepared or studied differently in any way?
Yeah, I think so. I think because when we were studying, like we might have used way too many resources.
Okay.
Right. I would suggest, like stick to for new upcoming students, what I would say is stick to one place where you're writing all your notes.
Okay.
That's extremely important because, like, let's say you want to review microbiology, right? You're not searching to like 10 different books to look at microbiology. When you've done all the hard work already, go to that book, that you go to the notes that you already taken, and learn from there, or add on to that. Okay. That would have helped.
That's interesting, and generally speaking, now that you're done with everything and you've already put in your application, and this is your first year going through the residency match, you're currently a USMLE counselor for St. James.
That's right.
Can you tell us what that is?
So we help students that are in that limbo phase between MD5 to comp and step 1.
Okay. And
a lot of them have issues with, like, some of them will have like knowledge issues, right? It's just to guide them, what to study, how to study.
Right.
Others might have issues with the question itself. They might have the knowledge, but they don't know how to apply it.
Okay.
So we try to help students like that. And even though it's a counseling position, I end up teaching them, tutoring them about certain concepts. And our goal is for them to pass comp.
Right.
And then pass step. So far we have been successful.
Okay.
It's been good.
And considering your USMLE counselor position versus your chef job versus your sales job, how would you...
Which was the best? Is that what you're trying?
Yeah.
All right.
I don't want to use the superlative term because they're so diverse.
Yeah. The best job I would mention that I haven't mentioned yet.
Yeah.
It was McDonald's.
Really?
I loved it so much. I was in high school. I worked at McDonald's in high school. Oh my God.
Why did you like it so much?
It's all friends working.
Okay.
And we just had fun. We had competition on like how fast can you make like cheeseburger.
Okay.
Yeah.
And who won there?
Oh, see. I'm kidding. I was third.
Okay, but it definitely, I can see a pattern where you seem like a very good competitor / test taker. It almost seems like. So when it comes to competitions, you've got that nailed down.
I like competition. Yeah,
that's good. That's good. That's awesome. Well, as far as the counselors are concerned, what do you think are the qualities that make a person excel at counseling or be a very, very good counselor?
Listening is a big thing, right? Like same thing when it goes for sales or patients. Think of like these students are struggling, so like understanding their perspective is very important before you can help them.
Okay.
They might be going through something crazy in their life, and so empathizing in their position.
Okay.
And then we could figure out how to solve it, how to deal with it.
Okay.
But they feel like they're in that prison that they cannot get out of.
Okay.
Right? Learned helplessness. Even though the door's open, they feel like they cannot get out.
Right.
So a lot of students feel that way.
Okay.
So we're trying to break that ice.
Okay. How do you break that ice?
By listening to them, and then obviously like when we do questions, right? Like understanding where they're going wrong. So I do questions with my students, and then seeing like where they're actually struggling with.
Right.
And then I'll tell them, you know what, you did this to this correct.
Right.
You are good, but you were not confident in selecting your choice. Like why is that?
Okay.
And then we'll actually talk about it without like, I don't sugarcoat things. I tell my students if they're like bad at something, I'll tell them, but I also tell them how to improve it.
Okay. So without obviously giving away who the student is, can you tell me what your best student experience has been, or who your best student has been?
Our best students are, I mean, they're the ones that I want to schedule like 10 times a week. Usually, I mean, but they take advice very, very seriously, and then they follow through with it.
Okay.
Right. And I help them with scheduling. So, I see improvement.
Okay.
That's a big thing. I got one email just recently from like a young lady that passed her step 1.
Okay.
Very kind email. So I really appreciated it.
Okay.
It was nice.
That's awesome.
I posted on my.
Yeah. It looks like you're going down the professorial route.
I like teaching.
Yeah. It looks like after your residency, you might just get into medical education.
Yeah. I told Dr. Goa, like, I don't mind teaching like physiology now and then. So he thought he hooked me up with Dr. Balgolf. I did one physio lecture.
That's awesome.
Nice.
That's awesome. And so at this juncture, what specialty are you applying for again?
Internal medicine.
Internal medicine. Where do you see yourself, say, 10 years down the road?
10 years down the road. So internal medicine, initially, like I want to do cardiology.
Okay.
Hopefully. I mean, I'm not 100% sure yet.
Right.
But first I want to become a good internist.
Okay.
Right? A good like a hospitalist.
Right.
That's like academic standpoint, right? But 10 years from now, I want to be a little bit rich, be able to afford some cleaning ladies.
Well, I mean, I think you will be, just considering your trajectory and considering your history. I'm pretty sure. I'm confident.
Yeah.
I'm no soothsayer. I'm no clairvoyant, but I can tell you that it's definitely on the cards.
Yeah.
And you're gonna knock it out of the park. Right. But thank you so much, Sanket, for giving us the time today.
Yeah,
I really appreciate it. And make sure those students get all the help that they need, because again, I've always said that St. James, or any school for that matter, their success entirely depends on how well their students do.
Yeah.
And I think what you guys are doing is quite phenomenal. You guys are very focused on the students and have helped innumerable students.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say, as an administrator, my biggest gripe is that our students don't take advantage of some of the tools and resources that we have provided.
That's true.
With. So I think, generally speaking, that's what I think you should do, and especially now that you have a couple more months left. Plus, make a phone call and be like, hey, keep everybody accountable, essentially. Yeah,
I think now, like, a lot of people that are in MD5 are getting recommended to counseling. So like I had quite a few students in like the past month that are from MD5.
Yeah.
Right. They started MD5 and they're already contacting. Right. So
thank you so much, Sanket. That was a very, very interesting conversation. Obviously, you have so much to contribute to any residency program you go to. Just the fact that you've actually lived on 5 different countries in and of itself brings so much of such a wealth of knowledge and experiences to any program. I think any program would be lucky to have you. If you liked our content, do not forget to give us a follow and give us a like. It goes a long way. We put a lot of work into producing these episodes. And feel free to download more episodes of Med School Minutes from your favorite podcast provider, such as Spotify or Google. Again, don't forget, there is no shortcut to becoming an MD.
Thank you so much for tuning into our show. We hope you enjoyed another episode of Med School Minutes. If you like our content, please follow us and receive notification when a new show is posted. This podcast is brought to you by St. James School of Medicine. For a video version of this podcast, please check us out on sjsm.org/video.